This is Chapter 36, EMS Operations. So in this chapter, we're just going to cover how we operate here in Moscow, Idaho with our volunteer ambulance company. So we do about 2,100 calls per year. We're now up to over 60 volunteers, approximately 10 medics. Actually, we have more than that now. A few AEMTs, and the majority of folks are EMTs. So we organize our response into 5 shifts, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Each of those shifts has 9-ish to 10 people on at any one given time. We are dispatched out of Whitcomb, which is located in Pullman, as is the rest of the fire department and the local Moscow Police Department. The other agencies in the county are dispatched out of the Latah Sheriff's Office, so that would be Troy, Deary, Potlatch, and Genesee. For our standard medical call, when somebody calls in to 911, the dispatcher is going to categorize that thing into one of these 6 categories. So they ask a series of questions and try and figure out what's going on. So the lowest level response is an omega response. These are typically just for calls when the patient there's not an anticipated transport there. So somebody that just needs help up, or some other thing that an EMT can solve on scene and not transport that patient. We don't get too many of those omega calls. The next level up is an alpha response. So these are going to be still a non-emergency response, so no lights and sirens. These are often transports from Gritman back to a nursing home. These also can be minor injuries, though, where there's no significant bleeding. And kind of strangely, some hip fractures will get categorized into alpha responses too. The next up is a Bravo response, and now we're going to start running lights and sirens. So what falls into this category are things like unknown injuries or unknown injury accidents, all fall into Bravos. If there's not enough information to really categorize things, often Bravo is kind of a catch-all for that, just because it's unknown. Other things that fall into Bravos are trauma-related things, so broken bones, that kind of thing. And anytime there's bleeding, you'll at least get up to a Bravo response. And we like to staff these with 3 EMTs if possible. Next up is the Charlie. Charlie responses are again in the lights and sirens response, and these involve typically medical type problems. So chest pain, diabetes, strokes, these type of calls end up being Charlies. If we can, here at this level, we like to staff those with an advanced EMT or have a medic respond directly to scene. The next up, the deltas. So again, this is the kind of the next severity level. We're still running lights and sirens, obviously. Anytime there's breathing difficulty or unconsciousness or altered mental status, then that's going to get up to a delta response. And then there's some trauma-related things that automatically get coded as deltas too, based on the mechanism of injury. So anytime there's a vehicle rollover, that gets coded as a delta. Anytime there's a vehicle versus pedestrian, that gets coded as a delta. And so it doesn't really matter if it appears nobody's injured from a rollover or that nobody's injured from a vehicle versus pedestrian. If it's one of those two, it gets automatically coded as a delta. And then the highest level response, the echo response, that's going to be somebody that's in cardiac or respiratory arrest. And those are pretty much the only things that fall into echo responses. And anything like Charlie and above, where we like to have a paramedic respond to scene for those. On the fire side, ambulances do respond to fire calls at the Delta and Echo level, basically. So anything that's a structure fire is going to get coded as an echo. Anytime there's smoke or flames, that's an echo, and we'll respond to that. The ambulance is going to go non-lights and sirens to pretty much all these things unless specifically asked to run lights and sirens. So the way the process works, the dispatcher sends out tones over the VHF radios, and that activates pagers for those people that are still running pagers, and they'll basically say what the emergency is and request an ambulance response. And then EMTs out there are all carrying around radios, and whatever shift day it is gets on the radio and calls in and selects a station to respond to, or perhaps the scene, and then anybody else that wants to go on that call calls to that same station. And once we get the proper number of responders, 2 or 3, then we'll call a full crew, and that lets dispatch know that they don't need to keep toning anymore.